Moderation is a delusion people invent to describe themselves. There is no moderation between right and left, just like there is no moderation between correct and incorrect. That's just wrong, but pretentious and easily upset about. That is a nuclear take from Bomber Guy, who I've had problems with in the past with certain charities he's donated to. But there is so much wrong in this tweet, and that seems to be going around the political sphere at the moment, that I really have to address it. It's a straw man that's been going on for quite some time that I have noticed take more and more popularity throughout the political sphere, and I would really like to burn the whole straw man down. I would call myself a moderate centrist. That does not mean I am a fence sitter. You can go through my whole back catalogue of videos and find me absolutely having goes at people that are going against my zealous wishes for freedom of speech, among other subjects. But the fact the tweet got 4.4 thousand likes really says something to me, and that's that these people are so disconnected from real life and how objectivity and other compromises work, along with the position of moderates, that they have just created this whole narrative around the moderate centrist that just doesn't bear any resemblance to reality. I regularly watch another YouTuber called The Britisher. Now, The Britisher is as centrist as they get. He is a very wise man and makes excellent content, but he is constantly poked at as being a fence sitter, and he had to directly address this in the video, So I'm the Centrist, the Fence Sitter, Free Speech, Patreon, etc. And in the video, he thoroughly explains his position on free speech and explains how he is a zealot about free speech, and how he's the opposite of a fence sitter and actively goes out of his way to write letters to MPs, among other things that actively help in the political discourse around free speech. Free speech is neither a left or right wing cause. This is proven by the fact that in the 60s you had people at Berkeley, a left-wing institution, asking for free speech so that they could actively discuss ideas freely. But now you've got the right wing doing it because they're being attacked by Antifa constantly, and they're burning down cars outside of such shows with Milo Yiannopoulos or Ben Shapiro. The centrist would say free speech is a universal right. Everyone has the right to express their opinion freely without suffering any financial consequences or consequences from the law. Freedom of speech absolutely means freedom from consequence. So when I see the straw man of the centrist being someone who just wants to find compromise between left and right, I get particularly angry, especially when his next tweet comes out. The moderation between drinking poison and not drinking poison is drink a little bit of poison, then a bit more when the purity testing non-drinkers make fun of you. I understand there's social capital right now in seeming open-minded and capable of compromise in an increasingly partisan time, but it's not open-minded at all to fetishize your existing beliefs as the things open-minded people believe. Well, that was just a word salad and didn't make much sense, but I'll concentrate on the poison analogy for now. This is a slide from my university days on a lecture about toxicology. Now, as we can see from the bottom, the small dashed line indicates a substance that enhances, say, bodily functions. And then if you take too much, it ends up having a toxicological effect. Now, this could be some type of performance-enhancing drug, such as paracetamol. You take 2 tablets of paracetamol every 4 hours, that will have enough to dull the effects of headaches and other symptoms that you may be experiencing that paracetamol attacks. But you take too much of it and it starts to have an adverse effect on you. Now, in the analogy that Bomber Guy gave us, this will mean that taking a little bit of poison is actually good for you, because paracetamol is technically a poison. But now the longer dashed line indicates a substance that has no positive effects, but has a threshold that will start a toxicological effect. Now, this could be your standard long-term poison, where, say, you put enough of this poison in someone's drink, they drink a bit of the drink, it won't have any effect, they drink too much of the poison in the drink, and they end up dying. Now, the thing with these threshold substances is that you can actually build up an immunity to them. If you drink a bit of dosage of them every day, your body will end up being able to attack this substance and metabolize it quicker, so that the threshold to actually have the toxicological effect is further. But let's be charitable to Bomber Guy and assume that he means a no threshold substance. Let's say you were in a cult, and this cult was trying to give everyone punch with a no threshold substance inside the punch to get people to commit suicide and go to heaven, as they say. This would, in H. Bomber Guy's opinion, be a right-wing view because it's probably got something to do with religion, and they probably act like zealots. Now, of course, the left wing would be saying, no, don't drink the poison, that's stupid and it's going to kill you, and the right wing, in quotation marks, would be saying, no, drink the poison, we're all going to heaven. If you think that the centrist position on this is to drink a bit of the poison, as H. Bomber Guy is suggesting here, then you are completely wrong, and I challenge you to find any type of centrist that would try and find a compromise between getting a cult to kill themselves and the left wing saying, no, don't kill yourselves. And this is all in H. Bomber Guy's head, by the way. Everyone who isn't in that cult, even the right wing, will be saying, no, don't drink that poison, it is very bad for you. So altogether, his tweet about the poison is a false analogy. And it's actually on Wikipedia, this argument to moderation. Argument to moderation, Latin argumentum ad temperentiam, also known as the false equivalence, false compromise, argument from the middle ground, equidistance fallacy, and the golden mean fallacy, is an informal fallacy which asserts that the truth must be found as a compromise between two opposite positions. An example of a fallacious use of the argument to moderation would be the regard two opposite arguments, one person saying that the sky is blue while another claiming that the sky is in fact yellow, and conclude that the sky must be green. While green is the colour created by combining blue and yellow, therefore being a compromise between the two positions, the sky is obviously not green, demonstrating that taking the middle ground of two positions does not always lead to the truth. The thing with this fallacy is that I've never actually seen it in action. All I ever see is, say, the left wing stating out some fact that they say is objectively true, someone then saying back, no, that's not true, here's the evidence against it, and then the left wing saying, oh, well, that's just my opinion. This happens a lot in the media circles on YouTube, trust me, I'll watch them. But the problem is that the left wing, and it is exclusively the left wing, has made this straw man that centrists are just these people who are exactly like the Neutronians from Futurama.
I have no strong feelings one way or the other.
And this straw man is shown explicitly from the left wing when we go on to the subreddit Enlightened Centrism. Their icon is Boogie2988 because, well, to be fair, Boogie has come out with some outright ridiculous things said on Twitter. But that's more because he's an idiot, and he describes himself as left-wing rather than a centrist, which I guess shows just how far left-wing this subreddit is. But it's got 55.2 thousand subscribers, and generally the most upvoted posts tend to be just this exact same straw man. I mean, we've got this largely upvoted post saying, can't we compromise and say that the Earth is both round and flat, which is, of course, ridiculous. But I suppose that's the point they're trying to make, because, you know, loads of people are saying that the Earth is both round and flat. And then there's another one sarcastically shedding doubt on what centrism actually is, which is actually a moderate amount of gun control. And another one saying what moral absolutist centrism is, and that's putting half of babies into wood chipper if people think that we should feed all babies into wood chippers. Of course, this is the left winger we're talking about, so they of course think abortion's okay. But seriously, no one in the centre thinks we should just arbitrarily throw babies into wood chippers. I know the point you're trying to make, but again, it really doesn't work because you don't have any real-life examples of it. And then when you actually do find a real-life example, you just prove the point of the people saying you're moral absolutists. From this tweet from Kathy Young, she ends up saying that the cartoon of Serena Williams is split between it's racist and suggesting it's racist is PC madness. And she suggests maybe it's complicated. On one hand, she understands that cartoons are supposed to exaggerate personal characteristics, and she also points out that some of the characteristics are what Serena Williams actually has, such as frizzy hair, massive muscles, and thick lips. And instead of actually engaging with the point, enlightened centrism just goes off and calls her a racist and says, oh, she's a radical centrist saying there needs to be compromise. When it's entirely a matter of opinion, you can absolutely give compromised results. When people are trying to deem something racist, which is entirely subjective, believe it or not, you can absolutely have subjective opinions on it. If you think racism, which can be an objective thing, but in this case it isn't, because ultimately it's how you interpret the artist's intentions, because the artist's intention actually came out as, oh, I was just trying to draw her as a crying baby, then you are making your own subjective interpretations. But because you're moral absolutists, you think it has to be morally objective. I mean, even your stickied subreddit note says, reminder, this is a left-leaning subreddit. The goal of this subreddit is to point out the hypocrisy of centrist types who often align with sometimes extreme right-wing views. You're not being clever when you make a comment to Modmail or MS Paint comic about how this is not a true centrist sub. The rules are in place to prevent hateful rhetoric from being discussed. If you avoid hateful rhetoric, you can express your viewpoint, but don't throw a fit when people disagree with you. So the intention of the sub is to point out hypocrisy from right-wingers pretending to be centrists, which, I mean, it's all just straw man, as I've said. I mean, you can look through the subreddit yourself and you won't find anything cogent within there. And in fact, one of your most upvoted posts is making fun of people saying you need to watch the whole of the Covington Catholic video to understand the context. 3.2 thousand upvotes, and the title is I just want to know both sides of the story as a libertarian. No, they're trying to get the full context of what happened there, because the media put out tweets saying that these boys need to die and that they deserve to get doxxed because they weren't doing anything wrong, as the video said. This post actually made a load of people unsubscribe from it because they just realised it's just full of straw men and that absolutely no cogent points are actually made within the subreddit. I mean, this is how ridiculous their viewpoint is. They think trying to get a whole context of an event is a right-leaning person's centrist view on an event. I don't think I need to point out how absurd that is, but I've had enough of this tanky garbage. I need to go through H-Bomber-Guy's other point, which was that there is no moderation between right and left, as there is no moderation between correct and incorrect. Only a moral absolutist would absolutely think that you can conflate correct and incorrect with right and left. Political positions are based off beliefs which are entirely subjective and you do not choose. If left and right are essentially come straight down to people's biases, they have to entirely be subjective, and you can use objective evidence to back up your positions. The other problem is that left and right themselves are entirely subjective. For instance, as I used in the example before, left-wingers at UC Berkeley were arguing for free speech 50 years ago, and nowadays they are burning down cars to shut down free speech. That is a rather radical shift in a belief of a wing. So unless you think correct and incorrect facts can constantly change, I am afraid that your analogy here doesn't work yet again, H-Bomber Guy. This is the position of Catholic radicals throughout the Dark Ages. The Catholic interpretation of the Bible at the time was absolutely perfect, and it's either a correct and incorrect way to follow the Bible, and that is deemed by the Catholic Church. I say this as a Catholic when I say the Catholic Church has got things wrong before, because ultimately it is just a collection of fallible humans, so of course it's wrong. As is every political wing, a collective even, of fallible humans. Everything they think is influenced by bias, of course, so political ideas will be entirely down to opinion and subjectivity, rather than scientific fact, which is all down to objective experimental data and peer-reviewed methodology for reaching said scientific truth. That is not to say your positions can't be based in fact. For instance, right-wingers are adamantly against socialists, as am I, and I say that as a centrist, although I say it more as a liberal. They have seen the failed experiments constantly with socialism when it comes to Venezuela, when it comes to the USSR, and when it comes to Mao's China. People die, no one is free, and absolutely everyone has a miserable time looking at the news about it. Now, of course, the left wing are free to have the opinion that socialism is the correct way forward, as Jeremy Corbyn does, but unfortunately he doesn't really have much evidence backing him up, and instead has to go for the moral side of the argument. And for some reason the right wing don't seem very good at arguing back on the moral side, although centrists just seem to go for the freedom side, which seems to be working quite well. But that's about everything I had to say about H-Bomber Guy's absolute stellar take on what the moderate centre is. But I wouldn't have made this video if it was just about H-Bomber Guy's take on the whole debate. We've got to go with someone that I was hoping I would never have to do a video on this channel, but she pissed me off in just the right way that I'm going to have to address her directly. Enter Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez.
It's like this, like, it feels like moderate is not a stance, it's just an attitude toward life of like...
Speaking as a moderate, I have to say that my stance on life is that you should absolutely do everything you can to take as much personal responsibility as possible to try and improve your own life first and then the life of those around you. Because you can only help those around you when you yourself are being taken well care of. And that's even better if you can do that all by yourself. If you think that's just a meh, then I am afraid you are sadly mistaken, Ms. Ocasio-Cortez.
Well, don't hold back. Tell me how you really feel about incrementalism.
But here's the thing that upsets me is that we've become so cynical that we view meh or we view cynicism as an intellectually superior attitude.
Name me one person in the political sphere who acts like meh or or doesn't particularly take a stance on anything that we look up to and that we say is intellectually superior on any level. Just one person. These people can't give a damn example of it, and whenever they do, it's a straw man or someone that isn't even in the political sphere as far as we're concerned. As far as I'm concerned, that is exactly how I know this is a straw man, because you absolutely cannot bring up anyone that actually takes this position of, oh, we're between murdering all black people and having civil rights. No, why not just find a compromise between that? Absolutely no one says that about the right to live and the right not to be murdered. I am your example of a moderate centrist here, and I have taken so many damn stances in the past year that I can't even get my head around it. I went on a damn protest because someone got thrown in jail for a Nazi pug joke. I was on the banner, marching at the head of it, giving a damn march, covering my damn mouth with tape to make the point that I can't speak freely. That's why I never say the dreaded phrase that Count Dankula used when he was teaching his pug to react. Because I don't know if it will get me a fine, and god damn it, do I take a stand when people are fined for jokes. I take a damn stand against that.
And we view ambition as youthful naivete.
No, we view naive youths that take hot takes such as moderate is a delusion people invent to describe themselves, and socialism is the way forward, and I'm literally a communist, as youthful naivety. You're young and just say what you can to get ahead of the game, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. To be honest, I think you are fake, and I think you are just saying these things to try and get the radical left wing on your side because you know how the game works, or at least you're a natural at it, I will give you that.
When we think about the greatest things we have ever accomplished as a society have been ambitious acts of vision.
Yes, that's true, but when you had the civil rights movement in the 60s with Martin Luther King, he based his entire philosophy entirely around liberal and illiberal injustices. He saw that segregation was a liberal injustice. He saw exactly what injustice looked like, and he didn't just blame the white man for it. The difference with you, and I know it's a cliche, is that your visions are just based on wiffle waffle about the rich and people polluting the planet. Your Green Deal was insane. You can call it a vision all you want, but it was naive. You can absolutely have naive visions, but Martin Luther King's vision was absolutely not naive. It was the exact opposite. The thing with Martin Luther King was that he made radical changes to the law by influencing lawmakers because all his arguments just couldn't be beat, basically. But the thing is that when you say being morally correct is more important than being factually and semantically correct, well, why would anyone take you seriously? I'm actually amazed you can get up on stage and say things like that and still have people cheering behind you. But I guess after everything I've gone through in this video, I shouldn't be entirely surprised.
And the meh is like worship now for what? Like for what?
She just got cheered for making absolutely no point against a straw man that doesn't exist, at least in the political sphere. I am absolutely certain there are people who are absolutely apolitical and do just have the position of meh, but no one looks up to them. And I am yet to find an example of anyone who is looked up to who takes the position of meh and doesn't take a stand on anything and just says compromise. In fact, that's a challenge for people who think similarly to H. Bomber Guy. If you don't think moderate centrist is an actual position and is just used to describe people who don't care about politics and don't take a stand, give me an example. Find any example and tweet it at me. Just find one. Just tweet it at me. I actually want to see what these people look like and if anyone actually follows them. Because as far as I'm aware, centrists like Dave Rubin, Jordan Peterson and other people who are going on world tours to talk to people, and not even necessarily in a political way, but when he does get onto politics, and I have been to events with Jordan Peterson where he does talk politics in some sense, he absolutely makes sense with all the knowledge he has in his brain that he could just recall on stage. I mean, it takes a bit of time sometimes, admittedly, but come on. If you think Jordan Peterson's right-wing and not a moderate centrist who takes massive stands on certain aspects of politics, then you're deluding yourself. And the good thing is that these people seem to be growing. I mean, Jordan Peterson absolutely filled out the Sydney Opera House the other week. How many people who go meh can do that? Tell me. Again, give me one example. But we've come to the end of this video. That's absolutely everything I had to say on this ridiculous straw man. So, thank you all very much for watching. I will continue to make huge stands as a moderate centrist and not just go meh. And I hope to grow an audience based on that. So, again, thank you very much for listening, and goodbye.